The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's Best Practice Webinar Series entry. I'm Dave Ruiz. I'm Vice President of Products at Ravenflow, and I'll be your host for the webinar today, which is entitled Taking Process Discovery to the Cloud. I'm trying to hold on for a few more minutes because people are still streaming in. So I'll talk a little bit slow as we get ramped up, but we'll get into it really quickly here. Today's presentation will give you some background on the discipline of process discovery, including what it is in terms of at least one person's definition of process discovery, what are the key activities involved in process discovery, and why is it important, and what's the value of process discovery in your organization. The presentation will also include a close look at how you can take process discovery to the cloud with our new web-based process visualization service called, surprisingly so, RavenCloud. And before we begin, I want to cover just a few quick housekeeping items. First, you should go ahead and submit questions directly through this GoToWebinar interface through the console. And toward the end, we should be finishing with at least 10 minutes to spare, both so you can get you guys on your way, but also to answer any questions that you might have. You can also go to RavenCloud's blog at blog.ravencloud.com and respond with feedback or questions there, and we'll respond. And we'll also be recording today's webinar and sending a link to you all after the event, so if you want to share this recording with colleagues, you can do that in the coming days. And finally, the last slide includes my email address, so if any of you would like a copy of today's presentation, just send me a quick note and I'll be happy to send it along as a PDF file. Okay, so looks like we've got a good attendance today, so let me collapse this console and get started. Okay, so in terms of the agenda, I will give you a quick introduction to Ravenflow, the company that really brings to you this new RavenCloud service, which I'll be demonstrating today. Give you an overview of the process discovery discipline, as I explained. Describe some of the key challenges for process discovery, and in particular, the process modeling challenge that so many of you face in terms of defining your business processes, visualizing them as a diagram or a process map, and being able to use those process models to facilitate requirement solicitation, process transformation, if you will, because if you can't get these processes identified and modeled in some meaningful way, it's hard to conduct the set of activities that encompass process discovery end-to-end. RavenCloud demo, as I described for you, as well as finishing up with any questions that you may have. So not to spend a lot of big time, if you don't know Ravenflow, we've been in the market for about 5 years now. We have technology that lends itself to both process and requirements definition work, and we have pretty much equal complements of customers that do one or the other or both. Our focus has been for a long time on really empowering the business analyst community, and so we've developed a reputation providing not only tools and technologies, but some best practice advice and consulting services that really help business analyst teams be more productive. We do have a webinar coming up later this month on establishing a best business analyst center of excellence that I think that you guys would find interesting. So you may want to sign up for that if you haven't already. Our solutions are based on the Raven technology, which is a natural language engine that, in a nutshell, takes a description of a business process and generates a diagram from that description. So that of course, is the core of what we do. We have partnerships with many of the leading players in both business process and requirements, including Microsoft, HP, and IBM. And our products have been very compatible with the Microsoft Office suite of products, which many of you use today for requirements, for process, or anything in between. And our customers have found that our solutions provide value very early in the project lifecycle in terms of defining and eliciting requirements, getting requirements right up front so that you don't run into problems downstream during the implementation phase, and so forth. So I have one quick question here. I just want to open that up. I can't hear the presentation. Anybody else suffering from inability to hear what I'm saying? If you do have problems, please let me know, and I can try to deal with that, or I can try to speak up. I don't know if it's I'm just not being heard or there's no audio at all. So please let me know one way or the other. Okay, so let me just continue and get into what is business process discovery. In terms of a simple definition, it's really the activities associated with capturing and defining an organization's business processes, right? Both to identify what they are, what parts of the business they impact, so that people understand the way your company works now and or the way that you want it to work going forward. And in the context that we typically use, not only discovering what those processes are, but identifying the requirements for transforming those processes into a new state, the to-be process, if you will, maybe as part of an application project that's just been kicked off. And so what it encompasses really is, the business areas which the process operates, the people who participate or interact in those processes, both people inside and outside the company, the key business functions that those people perform as part of the process, the systems of record, the existing applications or business systems that these processes integrate with or interface with or exchange data with. Those are all part of what you need to identify in terms of a process discovery initiative. And ultimately, process discovery isn't just about what's the process, but what are the business goals, objectives, or outcomes to be achieved through the process, either so you understand clearly how your work gets done today, or the outcomes you seek as part of a process improvement initiative that's going to improve the way you work going forward. And this slide includes a description of process discovery by Clay Richardson from Forrester, and in terms of the importance of this, discovering and understanding your business processes, the first step to business process improvement. In many companies, it's the first step toward a business process management solution, also called BPM. And because if you don't, discover or identify what those processes are, you can't even begin to implement a BPM solution that transforms those processes. Let me check to see if I'm still getting, I don't hear any more complaints about sound, so I'll just keep going. What activities and skills are involved in process discovery? Again, this is part of the kinds of communication and dialogue we have with folks like yourself in terms of what are the activities involved by and performed by people in the organization, business analysts, business systems analysts, requirements engineers, whoever it is involved. It involves these kinds of activities in terms of what's the business need, what are the key business needs in terms of requirements and eliciting them from stakeholders. Modeling and mapping business processes is a key part of it. And then not just modeling them, but analyzing and optimizing those processes, particularly if you're looking to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of your business. What are the business rules or policies that really govern how these processes should be executed? What's some of the key data elements? Remember I talked about business systems of record or data interchange, whether it's customer records or product ordering records. That's all business information that gets carried by and through the process. Requirements definition. We consider here at Ravenflow that requirements really falls under the process discovery umbrella. Why is that so? Well, it'll become clear in a minute, because what Raven does is allow you to quickly define, analyze, and visualize those processes so you can more easily understand what are those requirements for transforming them going forward. And then ultimately, once you discover what the process is and the requirements, then you need to confirm that understanding with all the stakeholders, both the business side, the business owners or the business unit managers, as well as on the development side, your development teams, your architects, and so forth, to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that the business intent on one hand and the IT execution on the other hand are in complete synchronicity, so you have the most successful project that you can possibly achieve. And then on the right-hand side of this slide, you see some of the discovery skills that we think are important. Obviously, your skills in business analysis are brought to the forefront here, your ability to structure your thinking, organize your findings in a way that's easily consumed by stakeholders who might not be as experienced, to be able to communicate and interact with those stakeholders in a very effective way, not only to draw them out, to make sure their needs are clearly understood, but also guiding those discussions, influencing how they interact with one another, so that ultimately the project is conducted in a very effective manner where information flow is maximized and understanding on both sides is to the greatest extent possible. So that's what skills are involved. And then, of course, what's the value at the end of the day, right? It's understanding, right, how a current process really works. It's helping you identify any bottlenecks or constraints in how those those processes operate today. It allows you to explore strategies for optimizing them going forward to improve performance or throughput, or improve the way you interact, enrich the interactions you have with your customers, if you have a customer-facing process, for example. It helps you identify those touch points between the people, the process, and the systems of record, right, so that you understand what systems are leveraged or utilized by the process. And it also begins to put you in position to not only document, but also share and reuse some of the process components that you identify as part of process discovery, whether it's the activities and who they're performed by, the resources, both in people and systems, the data elements, the business rules and policies, whether it's a policy about how you treat a particular class of customer, or it's a particular decision that needs to be performed that directs how the process proceeds from one end to the other. So really, in a nutshell, process discovery does allow you to pursue a very flexible, business-driven, or business-friendly and process-driven approach to defining requirements by allowing you to capture and analyze the processes that target application will be used. And that's why we talk a little bit about process discovery requirements really go hand in hand, because we at Ravenflow think it's the most effective way, the most business-friendly way, and the best way for IT counterparts to understand the scope of work that they're being tasked to implement on behalf of business. Okay, so transitioning now to, well, okay, if that's the discovery discipline, then who is it that really drives process discovery in the enterprise? And from our standpoint, as we've historically said, business analysts really are the vanguard, the front line, if you will, of process discovery. Now, the titles may vary, right, but the activities are fairly common across the number of companies that we've certainly interacted with over the years. Starts with business planning. Do I have a project or not? Right? Whether you have a program or project management office where business application projects get approved, but what are the key business goals and objectives for the project? What are the key capabilities or business needs that are to be delivered through the project? And what are the priorities for delivering those capabilities on behalf of business, right? Because ultimately, in any project, there are trade-offs. And if the priorities aren't clear, then the implementation strategy will be likewise unclear, and you'll end up having project outcomes that are not delivering what the business really intended. So the process discovery then includes things like what are the processes that are impacted by the project, thinking about what key business terms whether it's the actors who participate in the process or the business objects that are handled through the process. A glossary is a key foundation component of process discovery, because if you don't define those terms up front, then as you define your processes, you could be referring to process artifacts in different ways, which ends up confusing the stakeholders involved. And of course, mapping, modeling, drawing, diagram, whatever term you prefer, this is a key activity during process discovery, which is really the focal point for what RavenCloud has to offer. Definition of requirements, something that Ravenflow has specialized in for a number of years, eliciting those requirements from stakeholders based on the processes that are impacted, and then publishing requirements documents or specifications to the appropriate level of detail so that all sides understand what the real needs are. Confirming that understanding with stakeholders, so whether it's through a formal review and approval process or through a simple exchange of requirements documents through email, there's some type of walkthrough on the terms of what the process is now and how it needs to change, or reviewing of requirements documents, which has been a traditional way of having business and IT to communicate about the scope and deliveries requirements for a given project. And then ultimately, process discovery does encompass an ongoing dialogue between business and IT, right? Process artifacts really form the basis for clear communication and a consensus of understanding between those parties. And we've yet to find a better way for one side to understand the needs of the other and vice versa. So again, this is a high-level graphic that's meant to depict what it is that the business analyst does to pursue process discovery on behalf of their companies. But, as we show here on slide 8, there's a reality check in terms of what tools people use to perform process discovery. And, long story short, it's all about Office, right? Today, traditionally, if you're trying to define your requirements for a project, you're using Word and Excel to do so. And if you're trying to generate process maps or flowcharts, you're oftentimes using Visio to that end. And even more recently, in a survey that was performed by Forrester here and just 3 months ago, when the question was raised, well, what categories of tools do you use to perform your job as a business analyst, 99% of the respondents, and there were over 1,400 respondents, said, I use Microsoft Office tools, and 79% said they use Visio specifically to perform their job as a business analyst. So that's the reality, right? Yes, people do use purpose-built process modeling tools. People do use other types of modeling tools, whether it's SmartDraw or some what have you. But ultimately, it's Microsoft Office that most companies rely on. But the interesting side note to that is, if you ask the question to Gartner or Forrester, well, if it's true that people are 80%, 75% of the time are using Visio, what's your guess about how effective those people are at using Visio to do process modeling or visualization? And the answer ranges from 10 to 20%. So 1 in 5 business analysts are truly effective at using something like Visio to generate a process model that could be used to convey understanding in terms of process discovery. So one of the challenges that we're trying to address is exactly that challenge, right? Helping more people contribute to process discovery by transforming the way process modeling is performed. So if I can bear with me here a little bit, and if you could respond to a poll question, and I'll do that here very quickly. The first question is, well, what tools do you use to model, to draw, or diagram your business processes? So if you could just take a few minutes, a few seconds here, and just respond to this quick poll. I'll wait till about 60% of you have responded, and then we'll move on quickly so we don't run out of time. Getting there, getting there. 56%, 67%. All right, that's close enough. We'll close the poll. We'll share the results. And there you see, right, 71% are using Visio, 7% are using PowerPoint, 14% are using some other drawing tool, and 7% don't do any process modeling at all. They have others do it on their behalf. So thank you very much for responding to that poll. If I continue in the survey, I've actually done a similar survey over the last several months. And here you see the compiled results from the survey question, the one you just responded to. And, you know, I'm not making this up, right? 71% on average over the last 6 months have used Visio, right? 7% are using some business process management or modeling tool. 12% are using PowerPoint on average. So that's a go-to flow charting tool because, you know, office drawing capabilities are fairly simple for business analysts to use, and so forth. So I just thought it would be interesting to compare how you all responded today to historic results of this same question over the last several months. Okay, so now let's go on to some of those specific process modeling challenges, and I think it's pretty clear, right? We see in talking to folks like yourselves, people struggle, right? Drawing process models from scratch, the same way that the analysts from Forrester and Gartner responded to that question. People are challenged to do that. The learning curve for using Visio, even though 70% of you say that you are, you know, maybe it takes longer than it should to get the process models you need. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody. I'm just saying that for a good percentage, that's what we find. Some of you, some business analysts, some business users really aren't visual thinkers, right? So they struggle with kind of approaching a modeling problem, describing all these activities and laying them out in an organized way that conveys what the business process is from end to end. That's not a criticism, that's just the reality of all of us have different strengths and weaknesses in terms of our core skill set. And so if we can find ways to help more people contribute, whether they're drawers or whether they understand the process but can't draw worth a lick, that's really the problem we're trying to solve here. Labeling process steps, modeling is error prone in terms of is the flow correct, am I doing the decision logic correct, et cetera. Those are all challenges that people face when they try to model their business processes. And so if we go on to the next survey question, if you could please respond to this particular question, which is what are your most significant modeling challenges? And for some reason, I got XYZ. No, hold on, let me just see. That's an interesting poll result. So apparently I screwed up the process modeling challenge at this point, but let me just say that, you know, a lot of you have responded in the past surveys that we've done in terms of, yeah, the drawing part is hard, making sure everything looks good, even if I lay out, you know, define clearly all the activities, all the decision points, all the objects that are kind of handled by the different participants in the process. And getting that process defined in a way that looks good, is understandable, all the stakeholders involved, is a challenge. So that poll didn't come off so well, so I must have made an incorrect edit in the survey. But let me just go on to the last survey question and launch that one, because that looks a little better. If you could respond to this question, well, okay, well, assuming you're doing process modeling, how long does it take on average? And be honest now, because, again, it's not to point fingers at anybody, but in our experience, process modeling is not a trivial task, you know, and so people struggle to get, you know, these maps created. And so if you can just respond, which you have, so let me close this and share the results. There you go, right? So 7% of you are superstars, 1 to 2 hours max, and you can have a nice process model created. 27% in the 3 to 4 hour range, 20% 4 to 8, 13 1 to 2, and 33%, right, are 2 or more days. So this is not an insignificant, commitment of time, energy, resource in getting these things done. And the question is, how can we maximize the efficiency of effectiveness of getting process models created on behalf of the enterprise as a whole, right? So thanks for doing that. Let me hide those results and go on with the survey. And if you, once again, look at the historical results for the same type of information, how long does it take to model a process on average? Well, you can see, right? 10% in the 1 to 2 range, 34%, and in the 3 to 4 hours, 4 to 8 hours, 28%, et cetera. So again, this is just to give you a sense of what kind of effort is involved, and to really help quantify that this is a time commitment that's very significant in the scheme of your overall project responsibilities. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is the existing Raven product portfolio. We have client-server products with a SharePoint backend. We have a Word add-in called Raven Express. We integrate with a number of third-party requirements products, including IBM Rational Requirements Composer, but principally today, the focus is on cloud, taking process discovery to the cloud with Raven Cloud, right? And so just to kind of cut through that, let me just introduce Raven Cloud to you. It was launched in December as what's called a freemium service. What that means is there are certain aspects of the product that you can get and use for free, but to do anything significant, you need to sign up as a subscriber, right? And so one's a teaser, if you will, to let you experience it for yourself. You can even go and try it now, though I prefer that you continue to listen to me for a few more minutes, and then sign up for a free account, which turns on some more capabilities before committing to a monthly subscription. Since December, we've been averaging about 500 people a day coming in and experiencing Raven Cloud for themselves. Its focus is really enabling anytime, anywhere process discovery, right? And so instead of kind of going through the laundry list of functions for you, let me just show you what they are by leaving you with this particular slide. At a glance, what it does is allow you to analyze and create a rich visual diagram of a business process without having to draw it. So this text that you see on the left becomes a diagram you see on the right, either in that orientation or in this orientation, from a natural language description of that process, right? And so that is the Raven technology, this patented natural language engine that we brag about. And its fundamental value is not just producing this diagram, but also analyzing what you wrote and pointing out errors that can lead to flawed requirements or misunderstandings between stakeholders downstream in terms of the application lifecycle. So without further ado, let me just go ahead and go into Raven Cloud. And if you can see the screen, if you go to ravencloud.com, what you'll do is click on the Try It Now button. So I'll pretend that I'm just like you. I go and find Raven Cloud. I launch it. And what it does is bring up the simple high-level interface, which is designed to help you describe your business processes and generate a diagram in seconds, right? So on the left-hand side, you see what we call a Process Explorer, right, consistent with the process discovery theme. And you can tuck this out of the way if you want to maximize your available screen real estate. And, rough and tumble, the simple thing is try some of these examples, an architect planning process or a customer search process or a customer support process, right? Let's keep it simple to start. Let's go back to this one. And so what you do is whether you type it yourself or you use one of our examples to kind of get the feel of what your writing requirements really are in Raven Cloud, is you author it, and once you're ready, you click on this red button, which invokes the Raven language engine, And what it'll do is take that text, and again, we tuck this out of the way, and generate this diagram from it. Right? So if I step through this particular process, this sentence here about the architect sends the plans to the contractor who reviews them carefully. Well, if I select the text, you see the corresponding steps in the process highlighted. If the contractor finds errors, right, which is this decision right here, they'll either return the plans to the architect, which is this path here, right, or they'll forward the plans to the builder, which is this path here, right? So what Raven is doing is taking the textual description of the business process, analyzing it, automatically identifying things like, you can click this button here to show the process terms that are referenced in your little process narrative. The architect is one of the actors, right? And the contractor and the builder. And some of the objects involved are the plans for the construction and the construction, job itself, right? And so these things are automatically identified by Raven Cloud, and you can see those directly. Now, if I go back and close this, there's another thing that you see here in the interface. If I go to this process, we store these. When you have an account, you can actually store your work in the cloud and provide some simple defining attributes which uniquely identify these processes in your company. And so the name and the description, is it an as-is or to-be process, et cetera, and so forth. So once you become a subscriber in Raven Cloud, you have this ability to store your work, right, classify and into these virtual folders, if you will, and then share those among colleagues should you sign up for a multi-user account for your company, right? So you click on this little button here to navigate between there. And just to show you how this works from scratch, if I clear this and just author my own little process in real time, right, you can use things like start process and end process and click the Analyze button, and guess what? All you'll get is a start node and an end node in the diagram, right? But if you continue, right, and you say, well, the employee prepares an expense report and sends it, meaning the expense report, to the manager, right? Pretty simple sentence. Right? And so now I've got two actors, right? An employee and a manager, which are referred to here, right? And they're dealing with an expense report object, which you see here, right? Now, if I keep going, right, then I say, well, the manager, what does he do next? The manager reviews the expense report. Sensible? And so the process continues, right? And then I could say, well, if the manager approves the expense report, then he, or the manager, forwards it to accounting. So I just identified a new actor in this process. Now I click the Analyze button. That new actor, the accounting department, shows up, right? But notice another thing occurred here. I wrote this conditional statement in the process narrative, and this little arrow light comes on in the interface that if I expose it, says, well, guess what? You've got an incomplete conditional, one of 8 different errors that Raven can identify for you. And if I click on that, it'll show me where that occurs in the narrative. I've got a true path or a yes path in this process, but not a no path, right? So I need to correct that by saying otherwise, or else, right? But otherwise, more business friendly, the manager returns the expense report to the employee, right? And my typing skills are challenged today. So I'll reanalyze that modified process. The error clears, the diagram is modified, and now I have a complete process definition, right? And, oh, by the way, I could change the orientation from horizontal to vertical with a touch of a button. I could click this icon in the lower right-hand corner and see it full screen, click the escape button to go back, and then there'll be, as you sign up, there'll be an ability to export the diagram into different formats. But since I'm just trying it now, most of those functions are disabled. So if you want to output this as an image, you need to sign up, right? At least give us sign up for a free account, and then we'll turn on that capability. So to show you some of those capabilities, what you would do is either go sign up by clicking the sign up link like this and go ahead and sign up for a free account. Since I already have a free account, let me just go ahead and log into that account. This is a multi-user or business account, and if I can remember my password. So now I'm logged in as me, David Ruiz at Ravenflow. Here's you can see some other things have changed in terms of the interface. More features have been turned on. This is my settings information, my profile, and my login information where I can change my email address associated to the account or dynamically change my password. And because this is a multi-user business account, I can actually invite people to share this account. And what that means is you provide this ability to just add users by sending them an email, and they'll receive a confirmation email and create their own login to this same shared account. And after that point, we can see each other's work. And so to give you a sense of that, the other thing that you have an ability to do is create your own what are called category folders, where you can define multiple processes and store them and classify them in these different folders so that when people are looking for them, they can look for them by type or by business unit or whatever types of categories make sense to you. And to create a new category is pretty simple. Well, this is my, operations category, right? So, and so, in this particular case, I saved this simple process for interacting with RavenCloud and put it in my development folder, right? And then I have access to my same personal processes here. And again, if you store these things away, now you can do things like, say whether they're as is or to be, index them into multiple categories. And again, this is all about creating a cloud-based repository of process definitions that can be shared with colleagues in different ways, right? So one final thing I'll show you here as part of it, just to kind of give you a sense of the power of RavenCloud. If I open up that same process, customer support process here, which looks like this. Hold on a second. There we go. Pretty complex process for interacting with a customer support organization. There's a set of export functions. You can export these as images. You can actually export them in what's called XMI or XPDL format. Why that's important is if you're a process contributor using RavenCloud and you have colleagues that use, I don't know, a business process modeling tool from another vendor that supports one of these standards, then the models you can create can be handed off to those colleagues, right, using this interchange format. But perhaps more important to most of you, given that 71% of you say you're using Visio, there is a direct Visio output here from RavenCloud if you become a subscriber, where we support both Visio 2010 and Visio 2007. And if I just quickly show you that, take this process, save it to my desktop, and call it, RavenCloud demo Visio or something. What it's going to do is package up this process, convert it to a Visio representation, deposit it wherever you stored it, locally on your machine. In this case, I just put it on my desktop here. So if I launch now Visio, what you see is that same process in Visio format, right? And so if I tuck this out of the way, you can see that in every respect, this is Visio, right? And so you could change the design of this and have it, become your own style, right? Or you can go to the cross-functional flowchart tab in the ribbon and show or hide the title bar or show separators. And you can even do things like, change the order that these swim lanes appear by moving things around. So in every respect, it's a Visio diagram as if you had drawn it yourself, but of course, the point is you didn't have to, right? So in this context, you could be a Raven Cloud user that either doesn't have Visio or doesn't want to spend the time to draw a diagram with Visio, but still produce a Visio artifact for themselves or for somebody else, right? And so Visio is one of your corporate standards. You store Visio drawings in a SharePoint repository, for example. Then really what Raven Cloud provides is a onboarding mechanism for you, or a way for contributing Visio process models without having to draw them from scratch, right? So that's a key value proposition for Raven Cloud. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to show you or share with you in terms of the demo. And again, the best way for you all to experience this is to give it a try yourself, create a free account, get a sense of what it can do for you. There are some light guidance capabilities, like a guide to how to use describe your processes in a specific syntax, a link to how-to videos out on YouTube, simple stuff that again, we're trying to make this very easy for you to grow accustomed to as a new way of modeling your business processes. Okay, so let me return to the presentation. The value of Raven Cloud, we think it's pretty self-evident. Some of the leading industry analysts and consultants in the industry, Nathaniel Palmer from BPM.com, Sandy Kelmsley from Column 2, have tried it for themselves and think it does provide value. It does provide a different path. It opens up new doors, if you will, for contributors who today are kind of locked out of process discovery activities because of the drawing challenges or other usage challenges that they face. And in terms of the pricing of Raven Cloud, at a high level, $25 per user per month. We give discounts for paying on an annual basis. We give multi-user discounts if you have more than 10 business analyst colleagues sharing a business account, so that if you're at 10 users, you can see the numbers here. So it's very cost effective compared to other tools and even other online services for process discovery. And just to give you a sense of what the financial commitment is for using a service like Raven Cloud for your process discovery needs. So beginning to wrap it up here before we take some questions, at a high level, this is how Raven, the Raven technology, and Raven Cloud specifically fits into what I characterize as the process lifecycle. Really high level, there are 3 phases: discover, analyze, and implement. We're all about discovery, right, where you're really focused on clarifying the business need. What are the business requirements? What are the processes impacted by the project I'm envisioning? And how do I get those requirements identified to the appropriate level of detail so that all the stakeholders involved, business owners, department heads, IT developers, and architects, understand the scope and the intent overall? The middle phase is really analysis. We support that a bit in terms of identifying logical errors in the processes you've written. But for a lot of people, process analysis also includes things like simulation of the process, running work items through a process in a simulated mode so you can kind of get a sense where bottlenecks might occur. We don't do that and don't intend on offering any solutions there. But there are a number of BPM players, whether it's Metastorm or Global 360 or IBM, that offer these kinds of capabilities as part of their BPM platform. Pegasystems is another market leader. And finally, implementation. Now, whether you're using a business process management platform with a runtime engine, that's executing your core processes, or whether you're custom coding, developing an application in-house, or using a third-party developer. Discover, analyze, implement. Our focus is on discovery, specifically on a business analyst. And where we think we help, right, is in helping bridge the process modeling gap, where people on the left-hand side of this diagram have historically focused on a textual description of business needs in document form, Word or Excel spreadsheet form, a little bit of PowerPoint to provide some visualization. But as you go from left to right, what you find is an increasing number of business analysts really aren't well suited to deliver to some of those needs. And so even Visio gets hard for some, and let alone if you go clear to the right-hand side where many of the business process modeling tools are. No offense to their tools, they're powerful, but they're complex, right? They require a degree of technical sophistication and understanding that really isn't suitable for a business analyst, in my view, right? And so most of these BPM vendors would absolutely admit that if pressed. And so our strategy really is to help bridge this gap, right? So that we can provide another onboarding mechanism, right? Open more of the doors for business analysts to contribute and thereby produce more process models to discover more about the way you're working than you can today faster and maximize the number of people who can actually participate effectively in a process improvement or application development project. So before I close off the webinar, let me just make sure if there's any more questions from folks. Daryl said he could hear, audio is good. Will I receive a copy of this presentation? Not too many technical questions, that's good. My voice seems to be fleeting anyway, but the answer to the question is, you'll see my email address on the last slide here in just 1 minute. So just drop me an email and I'll be happy to send you a copy of the presentation. So that was the, to learn more, you want to go to RavenCloud. Go to the RavenCloud Network on YouTube and check out some of the how-to videos. It's a library of videos that will grow over time as we continue to evolve the service. Hopefully you'll try it now, but then come back and see some of the new capabilities that we'll be offering shortly. For example, the ability to define a business glossary that you can reference when analyzing or writing your narrative. Outputting your diagrams not just as Visio, but as Microsoft Word documents, so you could take them right into your requirements area. Things like that we'll address in the coming weeks. So this is the last slide. There's my email address, and that today concludes our webinar for taking process discovery to the cloud. So hopefully, as you've seen today, we make mapping your business processes faster and more accessible by more people than ever before. So now, if you're a business analyst or process analyst or requirements engineer, more people can participate in process discovery activities and analyzing and visualizing how their company operates, how their work gets done, and how they can streamline their business processes to make them work better. So thank you very much for attending today. Please tell your colleagues about RavenCloud and encourage them to give it a try. Thanks again, everyone, and we hope to see you all again soon. Goodbye for now.